Hey everybody, and welcome to our webinar today. I'm Julia Billen, your host. Warmly Yours is president and chief bottle washer. And beside me to my left, right?
Whichever way.
Okay.
I'm the assistant bottle washer.
Scott Rosenbaum. Scott's in charge of everything technical, so we have our technical expertise with us today. I can't speak.
That's okay.
It's all right. We're going to be talking about waterproofing and electric floor heating installation. We're going to be talking about curbless showers and why we do all this and how we do all of it.
We do it because they're cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
No, they're hot.
Well, it depends.
Old joke. So let's get started. We want to let you know during the presentation, ask questions. We got a lot of questions in advance. We tried to milk all of that into today's content, but I'm sure there's some things that have been left out. So please, along the way, ask some questions. Let's get the ball going here. So why curbless?
Well, curbless is a job that I personally did, and the reason why is because the people that were interested in having it done were getting to the age where, you know, they're 50 plus, and they said, you know what, this would look really cool. Plus, we don't have to climb over a curb or anything like that. So why are curbless showers so popular is because they're easy to get in and out of. They're compliant with universal design guides, which we kind of went over here to when we installed it. They're easy to clean, easy to get in and out of to clean. They provide a seamless look. And some really big spaces, like gigantic bathrooms, are very conducive to just having a curbless shower and no glass walls or anything. So it does give you a lot of design flexibility that a lot of people are looking for.
So there's a design component, but there's also an aging in place component. And there are guidelines out there, and we're going to make these resources available to you. But you know, for curbless shower installs related to guidelines, local code guidelines, as well as aging in place or ADA. So
right. North Carolina State is a big shooter when it comes to that. So you'll see their name all over that. And that's universal design. That's when you have to comply with a code because a person may be in a wheelchair or something like that. Whenever it comes to designing this just for your own home, we just suggest that you follow the local building codes.
Excellent. All right, so that's the why for curbless. The next thing that we want to talk about is gives you an extra need for waterproofing.
Right. Because of the shallow nature of the curbless shower, the waterproof room eliminates the need for the entire room to slope towards the drain. So you can just dedicate that area for the shower for the slope, and the rest of the floor can stay the same. It also keeps you from having a nice water stain on the ceiling of your beautiful living room that your bathroom is above. Don't ask me how I know that. But it does provide a margin of safety if the drain does get plugged. It makes the waterproof like a great big bowl, the waterproof bathroom. So it does provide you some benefit there.
So you need to keep that separation from that subfloor.
And from the rest of the house too.
Okay, excellent. Love this image, by the way. That's brilliant. All right, so why curbless? Why extra waterproofing? And then we're going to add in some sizzle. We're going to add in that radiant heat.
Yeah, why have a cold floor in your bathroom or why have a cold floor in your shower when you can have it warm in both places? So just because you're doing a waterproof installation doesn't mean that you have to go without electric radiant heat. The good thing about our product is it is tested and standardized, the UL listing for wet locations. So it is compatible with Canadian rules and also with United States rules. So you can feel very safe putting this into your shower and into your waterproof room. And it's going to sit actually above the waterproof, and that's why it's tested to this extra high standard. So no water can get into the cable.
So that's a UL regulation that puts it through some additional testing to make sure, you know, it's great for zone 1
Correct.
Or anywhere.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. We also have to talk about the fact that people want that extra comfort in the shower. One of the things that always irritates me is I get into the shower and I somehow touch that wall. And then I get that shock of cold. And I think what's really great about radiant heating is the fact that with this type of technology, it's not just convection, it really does radiate, and it starts to warm all the surfaces. So it will, with time, warm those walls as well. So that's an extra benefit.
The good thing about having radiant heat In your showers, you don't have to be afraid either, because people go, what about electrical shocks, that sort of stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the wire is tested to the higher standard, and also the thermostat that's supplying electricity to that flooring surface, be it in the shower or in the bathroom, has GFI protection built into it. So if there's ever a ground fault or any problems like that, the thermostat will shut off. So the thermostat has the protection. You don't need to put a GFI breaker in there either. So there's no additional cost. It's all built into the thermostat.
Excellent. And then, you know, a lot of these showers, they have bench seatings in them. They're made of marble, stone, and that's definitely cold to the touch.
Yeah, if you've ever sat on an iceberg, you know what that feels like.
All right. So, so another benefit to the shower is just eliminating that cold bench.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So this is a lovely kind of extra level of comfort.
Correct.
Okay.
So let's take a look at the things you're going to need to have a waterproof heated bathroom and shower.
So this is the recipe.
Yeah, this is the recipe. There's your heating cable. You're not going to get any warmth without that cable.
Okay.
And there's your Prodeso membrane, and that membrane is spaced. It has little studs on the top that allow you to run the cable back and forth in there to hold it in place while you're installing it. The better thing about the Prodeso membrane, not only that, is that it's waterproof, as long as you use the ProBand to seal the seams where it butts up against one another.
So let's detail that ProBand for a moment, because, you know, it looks like a roll, but it also has some other accessories that we can use to kind of make sure that we've got the waterproofing in place. Let's look at the next slide. So you've got the roll itself, but then you have some of these preformed corners. How does that work?
Well, all these items are going above the Prodeso. So the thing to remember when you're installing anything on top of Prodeso, that it all has to be unmodified thinset. So that's a very simple recipe to remember. Below the Prodeso is a little more complex. You have to know what type of subfloor you have before you choose your thinset. But we know that everything on top of it is going to be unmodified thinset. So you have the ProBand roll, which is used to seal around the edges of the walls and up 2 or 3 inches onto the wall. Then you have corners that are prefabricated for you, inside and outside, and that's going to save you 5 or 10 minutes per corner by using these.
All right. So do we have any questions out there yet? I'm not seeing any questions pop up on our screen at this point. So this is the recipe. It's kind of like this. You need these components. You need the heating element. You need ProBand, and you need the installation membrane.
Right, and we'll also be talking about the sandwich pretty soon of the materials from top to bottom that are going to allow you to do that.
Okay. So as we're going through, okay, so we do have a question from John. So John, he's considering this for a bathroom in an outbuilding that is only used occasionally. So how long does it take for a cold tile floor to warm up? And that really, there are some factors that we have to take into consideration, but in general, we usually tell people about 45 to 60 minutes to get your floor up to temperature. So if it's on a concrete slab and not insulated underneath, that could be considerably longer, but most of the time, you know, these things do have insulation under. This might be a good opportunity, though, John, for your project to really think about adding something like Cerazorb, which is a synthetic cork, has some R values. You put that down first, and then that could help to insulate so that you get that heat going faster.
The simplest thing, when we get this question all of the time on the phones, and the easiest way to picture it is there's really no set answer to tell somebody how long it might take to warm up, because if you are putting this on an iceberg, it's going to take much longer to get warm than if you put it on top of a volcano, because obviously different situations that the system is going over is going to dictate how fast the temperature is going to rise. Yeah. So there's a lot of atmospheric things that come into that. But as Julia said, if you can put Cerazorb under that heating wire, it's going to increase your output, and it's also going to increase the time, decrease the amount of time it takes to go from one temperature to the next.
All right, thanks for your question, John. All right, well, let's move on. We've talked about the recipe. This is a great way to kind of show it all together. It's a system. And so layer by layer, let's detail it.
Well, you've got the thinset at the bottom. That's going to adhere the Prodeso membrane to the subfloor. And then you have the cable that's routed in through the Prodeso. Okay. And then once you have the cable routed in the Prodeso, you're going to then seam your areas that need to be seamed with the ProBand, either around the edges of the wall, the corners, and also where the system butts up against one another. When the Prodeso meets each other, you need to waterproof that seam, but you can't do that until the cables are down. Then once you do that, you use unmodified thinset to put your tile down.
Excellent. So I hope that's a great snapshot for everybody to kind of get a big picture how this is going to work.
Yes.
All right. Let's move on to the next slide. And okay, so let's talk about in general. This was a project that you supervised.
Right.
So let's talk about in general how large of a bathroom was this?
Well, the bathroom is pretty much the sweet spot of most of our bathrooms. It's around 60 square feet. So, you know, that's kind of a very, very common size. So the entire room was about 60 square feet. Well, once you start dealing with the dimensions of the entire room, you have to start taking square footage away because of heat vents, also water drains, also toilet fixtures, that sort of stuff, because you can't go in under anything that's permanent. So even though the room was about 60 square feet, we needed 55 of that square feet to be covered with Prodeso. The other area was taken up by knee walls and stuff like that. And then the heated area, because we're going to pull off the walls a little bit because no one ever stands right up against the wall.
Usually sit about a foot out.
Yeah, so we start 3 or 4 inches away from the wall, or as shown on the drawing to make it fit. And that area in the bathroom is about 38 square feet, and in the shower is right around 12 square feet. We filled the shower up really tightly. Well, to do that whole room and the shower, the total wattage was only about under 600 watts. So that's around 5 amps. It only requires one non-GFI outlet. So the operating cost of this system is only about a nickel an hour.
Okay.
Very, very affordable. And that's based on the 8% or the 8 cents per hour for kilowatts based on the national average.
On average. Now we do have one question that came in. You know, do you need ProBand if you're using something like a Weddy in the shower? Do you still need that ProBand to seam it out?
Well, Weddy's in a completely different system, and we didn't use any Weddy here, and I doubt if anybody would. I don't know. You always have to have some sort of seam that goes between the bottom and the wall. So I know Weddy has their own brand of adhesives. Whether that matches up and works with Prodeso, I don't know. They're 2 different brands.
Or some other type of insulation membrane.
Right. So that you'd have to ask Weddy if their product will work, or vice versa. That's the first time I've got this question.
Yeah, cool.
So that's a great question that I don't really have the answer to because I don't know the requirements of Weddy.
Yeah.
We don't sell Weddy.
Bob, you know, at the end of this presentation will be my email address. Let's follow up on that together. We'll get to the bottom of it. Okay, so for this project, you did a specific bathroom. We've got the power requirements, you know, the operating costs. So just to give you guys a general feel of this specific project, I mean, whatever you're working on, we can do floor plans to figure out all of your dimensions and the power requirements as well. So let's talk about that next. Let's go to the next slide. This was the drawing that was initially done, so sent in to us, and you can kind of detail this. You work with these drawings all day long.
Yeah, if you look, we always have to know where things are. To plan around where the wire is going to go, you have to keep the wires away from things you show us. So we need to know exactly where the shower drain is, because that'll tell us, is it a trough drain at one side? Is it a drain that's kind of off-center? Because there's a whole bunch of prefabricated things out there, off-center drains, center drains, trench drains on the side. So you're going to need to tell us what kind of drain you have so we can stay away from it.
And that's something specific only to shower systems, because when we're doing floor heating in the rest of the room, we don't care about the shower drains.
Correct, but we do care about air vents because you can't run heating cable over an air vent.
Right.
We also need to know where the toilet is because you never, ever want to get the wire too close to the wax ring in a toilet.
That sounded really dramatic.
Well, if you've ever melted a wax ring in your toilet, you're very dramatic. We also need to know where the doors are, where people are going to be walking in and out, and we also need to know where any permanent fixtures are, because National Electric Code doesn't allow you to put anything under a permanent fixture. However, in this room, you can see where the vanity is. They noted that it's a freestanding vanity, which means we can go under that vanity because it's not directly on top of the product.
Great. And, you know, Bill's got a great question. What if it's too long, the cable? What if they order too much? I mean, we kind of take care of that pre-sale because we do floor plans for everything that comes in the door.
Mhm.
So, you know, a lot of people only do it if they've got a sale, but even for the quoting process, we do a floor plan to make sure you have the exact amount of coverage that you need. And it's extremely important, those floor plans, I tell people to use those and use them with your customers as well, so that you can be walking through with them, you know, exactly where they want that coverage.
Yeah, especially the thing that happens a lot in new construction and also in remodels is somebody will say, I want a 50-inch tub, and then it turns into a 60-inch tub, and it turns into you've eliminated 5, 10, 15 square feet of floor area. Well, the more floor area you eliminate by using bigger fixtures, the more space you're running out for the cable to go into.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's so important, very, very important when you get this plan from us to verify that the dimensions shown on the plan match the dimensions of the room.
Things change.
Yeah, because if that tub has gotten bigger, there's nowhere to put that cable. So to answer your question is you never can cut the heating cable.
Yeah.
You just need to give us a call and we'll redesign it and get you out the correct cable size to go into that space.
All right, and Pat knows us. He's basically saying you guys sell a shower mat, and we're going to be talking about that more at the end of the presentation. So yeah, we do have prefabricated mats for the shower floor and for benches. And so he just wants to know, can he run the Prodeso from the bathroom floor into the shower and use a single thermostat? Yeah.
Yes, you can, but we're going to be talking about that. You lose for that seemingly being simpler.
Mm-hmm.
It also can lead to people that might want their shower to be warmer than their floor,
Right.
Or vice versa.
Right.
And they also might want their shower to heat up sooner because it's got a little bit thicker application.
Right.
So if you do one wire, there's it seems simpler, but it eliminates your flexibility. Because let's say that for some reason the guy goes in and they put a new drain in, or there's a problem with the drain, they go in and they put a new grill in and they drill through the wire. Now, if they drill through the wire and you don't want to fix it, for some reason that shower can be turned off, but the rest of the room stays nice and warm.
Right.
So by using one cable, you eliminate a lot of your flexibility. It can be done, but most of the people we talk to, I'd say 95% of the people we talk to do them separate
They like
cables.
to separate it out.
Yes.
The negative, the con of that is increased costs.
Mm-hmm.
Because it would be more efficient to use one roll in terms of cost. And you have that additional thermostat that you need to purchase. So you got to weigh those pros and cons. And that's, again, you can use the floor plan as a way to walk the customer through that. Let's go to the next screen. And,
But one point before we leave this, Julia,
yeah.
is I want to bring up, you can install 2 cables and hook them both up to the same thermostat if you want.
Okay, that's another option.
Yes, because they are attached at the back of the thermostat together.
Mm-hmm.
So what you can do is you can put both rolls in, put one thermostat. Then if your customer says, hey, you know what, I'd really like to separate this. I want one to be warmer than the other. Mm-hmm. Sure, no problem. We have 2 cables. Go ahead and do it. Mm-hmm. But with one cable, you're like, well, no, we can't. So it's very, it does affect your flexibility, but that's a great question.
Yeah, let's take it, and then I want to answer Bill's question, but let's take a look at the floor plan that was done specifically for this project that you guided and worked on. So the first thing you have there is you're looking at, from the subfloor, you're looking at how much Prodeso do you need? Where does that go? And so clearly you're only looking at, you're not going under the fixtures.
This case we did because
Okay.
it was.
It was a.
You tell us, yeah. You're going to tell us if this room is completely gutted. We're going to go over the entire floor surface. If you're leaving your vanity, then we're just going to go up to the vanity. Mm-hmm. So all you need to do is say, this is a big blank canvas, or I want you to stay away from, here's where the vanity already is.
Right.
So you just need to let us know that.
So Bill's question is the waterproofing above or below the heating wire? And as you're seeing right here, Bill, you're first putting down that Prodeso. And then the next thing you're going to do, let's look at the second slide, is you're going to put in your cable. So that's step 2. And then the step 3 would be the ProBand.
Right.
Where you're going to seam any edges and you're going to seam around the room.
Right.
Okay. So let's go through the floor plan. If you guys can see the color here, you have 2 different colors. So you have what looks like, the heating wire, and you've got a different color in the shower and a different color in the rest of the room. And that's indicating that you have 2 rolls that are, or 2 cable systems that are being used in this one room.
Mm-hmm.
And so back to your point where most customers do choose to keep them separate.
Right. And the main thing is when you're laying this out, the great thing about this, having a plan, is that on the plan, we'll show you where the halfway point is of that wire by design, and that's that red dot.
Is that what they are?
So there's 2 red dots on that plan. Those red dots are showing you where the engineers have plotted out the halfway point. Well, the very cool thing that our wire has, most competitors don't, is the halfway marking on it. So the halfway mark is shown with a piece of white tape. So your halfway mark on the wire should show up in that area where the red dot is. Now, not only do we do everything we do is designed to make it easier for the installer to work. So not only is that middle spot or the halfway point marked, but on the wire, we also count down the number of feet left on the wire. So you may be at foot 20, foot 19, foot 18, foot 17, and you can now gauge, okay, I've got 16 feet left, I've got 15 feet. It'll tell you right on the cable how much is left. So
that's a great guide.
Yeah.
Now Ed's got a question, but I can't see the entire question. So let's enlarge that area and let's see what Ed says. He's remodeling. He's remodeling a master bath, and he'll be installing a warm floor of about 120 square feet. 110 volt circuit. Will 110 volt circuit be sufficient? So he's doing 120 square feet. I'm not sure if you're at 12 watts or 15 watts per square foot, but on average, you're usually somewhere around 12 watts. So we can use that as a guideline. And to me, that looks like he's just at that threshold.
a little bit under.
Yeah,
That's the guideline we use, because the reason why is because the thermostats can switch 15 amps. That's the rule. You have to go by what the thermostat can switch. So if the thermostat's only switching 15, you can only give it 15 amps worth of cable. So at about 120 square feet is right on the edge. But this is spaced a little bit further apart than our normal wire that's attached to the mesh. So this is going to let you get probably right up close to 120 square feet. Yeah. The thing to remember, though, is if you have a 120 square foot room, you're not heating every square inch of that room. Yeah. Because that's, by doing so, you pull it away from the walls, it saves you cost up front, saves you operating costs later, and it keeps the floor warm where you're actually walking.
All right, so Ed, you should be right at a 15 amp dedicated circuit. Doesn't even have to be GFCI.
It does not.
All right, so we've got our plan, and again, this is a tool that you guys use to walk your customer or walk yourself through, 1 or 2 elements. Where every place you see the cable, the lines, that's where you're going to get heat. And this is also a great tool for the installer. Yeah,
there's a couple things. This is such a good slide. Because first of all, it shows you what size a cable is going in there. So if you look at the triangle next to the TCT number, that triangle shows where you're starting the cable. That's where the cable is going to start, and then it's going to terminate where the square is. Now, right next to one of those squares is the T. The T is the thermostat. You've told us where the power is available in the room. Right. Usually it's by the door, and that's where we're going to try to start the heating cable from that spot. So there you can see, also if you notice really, really closely along the top edge of that where you see the 3 foot and the 4 foot 8 or whatever that is, you'll see the numbers in green, 1 1/4 inch, right. 1 1/2 inch. That's the cable running up to the wall. So that measurement right there, 1 1/2, is actually the amount of distance you are from the wall. So it tells you how far you string the cable out, so it doesn't leave you guessing.
All right, and again, Bill, this is, how we make sure that you get enough and not too much cable in that room. So really important that when you guys get these floor plans back, that you detail them, not just the measurements, the change in measurements, making sure that your customer has the right heating footprint as well.
If you look at the tightness of this design, if any of these dimensions shrunk by much at all, both of these cables would be too long.
Yeah, it's pretty tight. Yeah. All right, let's go on to the next slide. We're going to talk about now how you stepped through the project that you were working on. And since Scott is the main man for technical support, the first thing he's always going to talk about is test your systems. We test everything 100%, but once it leaves here,
they could drop it out of the UPS plane and they go back and the scavengers get it. And we don't know if it's any good or not. If you've ever seen the beginning of Ace Ventura, when he plays a delivery guy, he drops the package and then kicks it all the way up the house. You don't know what happens between leaving here and getting to the front door. So what we always stress to people is not only test it when you're out in the field, but when you get that box from WarmlyYours, open it up and test it right away. Because if your job is next week, and if you test it now and you find out, hey, something did happen to this, it gives us time to get your replacement. You don't want your whole tile assembly guy there, you know, a whole crew, and all of a sudden, okay, let's test it. Oh, something happened to it on the way, and now what do you do with the crew?
Right.
So whenever you get it out of the box as soon as you get it, and test it with a digital ohm meter. These ohm meters are very inexpensive. Now, I'm so old, I remember when digital ohm meters were $100, $200, $300 a piece. They're $19 or less now.
Wow.
So digital ohm meters are the thing to do. Do not use the old analog meters with the needle. Those are pretty much worthless when it comes to testing floors. And you're going to be using this digital ohm meter 3 times. Follow the instructions, because in the instructions it shows you exactly when to test it and how to test it each time.
Okay, now this isn't just related to curbless showers. This is related to any floor heating install you do.
Right.
So this is just a general thing we wanted to say, test the system. We also have a device, you can see that in the lower end of the slide. It's the circuit check, and that is connected as you're doing the actual installation. And that little thing will chirp like crazy if the system or the wire is somehow compromised. So these are the 2 tools that we want to make sure that you folks are using as you're going through the install.
The circuit check is not a substitute for the digital ohm meter.
Gotcha. All right, let's move on. So test, test, test. All right, so we've done the testing and we've got our subfloor there. We can see this is, you're on a plywood subfloor. And the first thing you're going to do is take that Prodeso and you're going to start fitting it. So what are some of the special considerations that you had to take? What are special things you had to take into consideration for this project or projects in general when you're dry fitting?
The biggest mistake you could make is pre-cut them according to the plans in the office, and then go out to the site and find out that this area is either shrunken or gotten larger.
Okay.
So this is where you just take the plan that we send you, and then you go and you start measuring the space, and then you start getting it set up so that it will fit into that area.
And this product comes in it's a huge roll.
It comes in rolls, 2 different sizes. You can also get in individual sheets.
Okay.
So it does come in different varieties there. But if you take a look at the back, you can see the top is like a polypropylene type, but on the back it's fleeced. So that fleece is going to push down into the thinset that you're putting down on the subfloor. And here you can start to see the adhesion. He just wanted to pull this up and take a look at the adhesion around the drain.
You're talking about the image on the right?
Yes, because that's the drain hole. So what he's done is he's thin-setted around it, and he's pushed it down, and he's checking his adhesion here to make sure that he has enough thinset put on the subfloor for it to grab.
Okay, so basically measure twice, cut once. That's the golden rule. So let's talk about once we've got that dry fitted, you are going to really want to make sure that certain things line up. Right.
So when you're putting this down, first of all, you want to make sure that you've got the drain centered, and you are making your cuts around that. The smart plan is going to help you a lot when you're doing this, because it kind of gives you the idea. It's like a jigsaw puzzle, which piece fits where and what the dimensions of that piece are.
Cool.
Also, one of the main things that you have to do is when you're putting, obviously you can't do one contiguous area with one gigantic roll. There are going to be cuts in this to make it fit. Well, the thing is, you want it to look like at the left on the bottom, you want to make sure that the wire can go right through those the gaps between those studs that stick up. The one on the right does not. So you're going to be running that cable, and all of a sudden you're going to go, boop, can't do that.
Okay.
So the one thing you're going to want to do before you start thin setting it down, this is why you're doing it now, dry fitting it. You're making your cuts, you're setting it down, and not only are you seeing that it fits the area, but that these studs are lining up with one another to allow the cable to run through.
Okay, excellent. All right, so we're dry fitting, we're making sure that those studs line up, and then the next step in our presentation is we're adhering it to the subfloor.
Now, everybody, we're going to test you right now. What type of thinset goes above the Prodeso? Anyone?
Anyone?
That's unmodified on top. It's always unmodified between the Prodeso and the ProBand and also the tile. But below it, to adhere it to the subfloor, you have to use the correct thinset to adhere it to the subfloor because there are different kinds of subfloors. So if you're using plywood or cement based, which is what this entire job was,
Right.
we're just using latex modified thinset. That's going to provide the grab to hold on to the fleece that's on the underside of the Prodeso.
Okay.
Now, if you have gypsum or anhydrite based board that you're using as a subfloor, you're going to want to use unmodified underneath. Now, you're probably not going to run into existing vinyl flooring in the shower. If you are, it's a very strange situation.
Yeah.
I'd get out of there right away. But you might find it in the rest of the room.
Okay.
The one thing you have to worry about with existing vinyl flooring is it that padded stuff that comes on a roll that when you push your finger on it, it's got like foam underneath. If you've got that kind, you are going to want to take that out. But if you've got solid vinyl tiles, something like that, you're going to use fast setting latex modified Portland cement, which is thinset.
Okay. So this A118.11, do I need to memorize this?
No, but we are eventually going to be using, instead of just saying the name of the product, it's going to be going by the product number, which is the ANSI number. So it's kind of at the beginning. In Europe, the ANSI numbers are everything. You go by that. That's purely what it is. One question we got before we came to give this presentation today is, what about vapor or dampness coming up from the subfloor, or you have a damp space under the subfloor? The vapor management is handled by the Prodeso because it's got channels that the air, that vapor can get up into it, and then as it changes and ebbs back, it'll go back down into the subfloor.
Okay.
So that vapor management is actually built into the Prodeso.
Excellent. All right, so we're adhering it, and then the next step is you've got that membrane down. All right, you've adhered it with the appropriate adhesive.
Mm-hmm.
And now what we're going to do is install the cable per the floor plan. We've kind of talked through some of these things, but one of the things that you always like to remind people is all cable connections terminate at the thermostat. And then you also like to remind people about never daisy chaining. So it's in parallel if you have more than one roll, which is the case in this particular floor plan installation. 2 rolls, they go back in parallel to the control. Never connected in series, never daisy chained. So
yeah, you don't cook them together like Christmas lights.
Right.
Both connections have to be at the back of the thermostat. So that's one very important thing. Now, what I wanted to point out in this picture also is you can see that he's using a rubber grout float to push that wire down in there. You're not using anything made of metal. You're not using anything that can cut into that wire. That wire is very, very resilient. But you need to be careful. You don't want to be using anything sharp. So if you're going out to do this installation, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're wearing tennis shoes that day, not steel-toed boots. I've run into that in many cases in installations where the tile guys are wearing steel-toed boots. Right. That's a no-no. I make them take them off and do the work in their socks, because it's that steel pushing down on the cable can cause a short, and then you don't want that. So you can see here that the guy is actually using the backside of that Prodeso to kneel on. That's what that white part is. Okay. So he's kneeling on that with his knees. And also between that white spot there and on his hands, you'll see that there's kind of like a white line. That white line is where there's a seam. So that's where 2 panels, if you will, of the Prodeso membrane are meeting up. Correct. Up. Yep. Okay. And you can see that you could run the design showed you to do the same. You could run that wire right through that seam because they're butted up perfectly. I see. The reason I want to bring that up is because notice how the wire is going down first. Then later we're going to come back with a ProBand and put it over that seam right there, and you're going to see that in a little while. So we have to put the ProBand on top of the wire to make it work. Okay, well, we've got a short little video. It's only about 20-25 seconds, but I want to show you how fast it is to install this cable into the membrane. And picture is great, but video is even better. So a picture is worth 1,000 words. So that's what we're going to leave it at. The server had a little hiccup, I think. So let's just go ahead and go on to the next slide, and we can move forward. And maybe the next video is a little bit longer, but hopefully it'll have no problems. Let's take a look at the floor sensor. The floor sensor, the thing you need to remember is the floor sensor is in the thermostat box. You've got to get it out of the box to put it in before you do anything else. So after you get the cable put down into the Prodeso, you want to make sure that you run the sensor in there. Now, if you take a look, that's the white dots that are kind of going along there. But if we look down towards the bottom here, is where the sensor head is going to be resting. That's where the actual part that actually gets the temperature. It's a little thermistor, which is encased in a little plastic cap there at the end. We just showed you the routing of the wire with the white dots, so you can make sure that you don't run the wire over a heating wire.
Okay, that's important.
When you do this, you do not have to put the sensor out into the middle of the room.
No.
When I visit a lot of installations, they go, hey, can I make the wire longer because I want to put it all the way over there? Well, you don't need to put it all the way over there. You just need to get it into an open loop, as it shows right here, at least 6 to 8 inches. We did a little bit further in here, but 6 to 8 inches between 2 heating wires is perfect for that. Now, what you need to make sure that you never do is to never run the sensor wire, that black wire, in the same conduit as the leads for the heating wire.
So those are line voltage. This is low voltage.
Right, and that's against
Some
National Electric Code, and it
And
also
you might get some interference.
yes, yeah, it'll throw your temperature readings off in some cases.
Right, and I do want to point out that this is if you're running your radiant floor heating system at floor temperature. There are some people that run at ambient temperature, but in general, most people use floor temperature to control the heating element.
Especially in the summer. In summertime, if you have it set for 80 degrees and your bathroom is 85 degrees,
It's going to be a problem.
like her, then you will know that sometimes that floor heat won't come on.
Okay.
So that's why it's so important, especially in the summertime. You may never notice it in the winter
Right.
because it's set up that way. But we always suggest 9 times out of 10, unless you're using it for the sole source of heating,
Yes.
then you would have it set to room. But this is the best way. 95% of the people out there will probably use floor sensing. Just don't forget to put it in. Now, one thing to remember is if for some reason your installer forgot to put that sensor in,
It happens.
it happens. So what you can do is if you have normal tile, there's usually a grout line. That
Okay.
sensor is really, really thin. So what you can do is you can just route out the grout line in that floor and run it out there over the heated area and then grout right back over it and you'll never even know it was there.
Smart. All right. So we've installed the cable. Got to get that floor sensor in there. That sensor gets connected back to the thermostat in a separate conduit if that local code requires, or it can just kind of hang, I guess, right?
Yeah, the local code, we're around the Chicago area. Chicago burned down one time. So you have to keep in mind that those electrical inspectors are really picky. They want every wire in pipe or conduit.
Yeah.
But most unincorporated areas, that sort of stuff, some people require conduit for high voltage, some don't. So there are different areas around here that just have Romex running in the house, which is perfectly legal if that's to your local code. But the National Electric Code says they want a conduit for the high voltage and they want a conduit for the low voltage. So your local code always supersedes the national.
All right. So floor sensors installed, cables installed. Now we get to the good stuff. How do we make sure that we don't get mold and mildew and destruction to the property?
Well, none of this stuff is organic, so there's not going to be any mold growing on this stuff.
Excellent.
And here we can see that the seams are there. The ProBand is down in the seam areas. And also, if you take a look around the perimeter of the room, you can see that there's ProBand going around the perimeter there between the floor and the wall. And you can also see the waterproof membrane there on the wall of the shower. You know, waterproofing showers has really come a long way in the last 20, 25 years. And if you follow all these instructions, it's very difficult to get a leak in a shower nowadays because it's a good way to completely button it up. They have drains built in, pre-made drains now that you just get that stuff into, and the water is just going to go down the drain. There's no going around the drain or under the drain. It's really something else.
Excellent. All right, well, let's move on. So we've waterproofing with the program. Let's move to the next slide. one of the things that we really need to think about is Prodeso does have some requirements for tile size.
Right. Prodeso says 2x2 is the minimum size that you want to install over the top of Prodeso. For little tiny minute tiles, you might have to go to a different system. Okay. But that wouldn't be used with Prodeso, so there's no need to divert to that now. But what we have here is we have 2x2 mosaics mounted onto a fiber backed mat. So that mat actually sits down in there, so you don't really have to worry about lippage because they're all attached to the mat and they're all the same thickness. So that's how we were able to do this installation with these tiles.
Very nice. All right, so now the shower had one type of floor. Let's look at the rest of the flooring that was installed there. So this was for the general area, not in the shower. And you did something a little special here. You love these systems. Tell us about your pro tip.
Well, these people, the people that I talk to, we talk to tilers every day, and so many of them are going to mechanical levelers just because if you're going into a high-end bathroom, the last thing you want to do is if you look at the window, usually you're going to have a reflection between the window and you. And if you do, you're going to see every little minute lippage that's between you and that light source. So you're going to see some tiles higher than lower, higher than lower. You use this stuff and it's going to be like a pool table.
Yeah, I do have
nice and smooth.
I do have some lippage in my kitchen actually. And every once in a while, my toes are not happy.
Right, so you'll feel that. What's so great about this is it looks like UFOs landing on a barren wasteland, but really no, it's just these things twist down onto these pieces of plastic and it pulls everything to the same height.
So this is not related to curbless showers, not even necessarily related to radiant heating, but this is a great little tip that you've learned along the way to prevent some of this lippage, which actually prevents callbacks because customers just don't seem to like lippage.
Right, they do not. I wouldn't like it either.
All right. So mechanical leveler, just a pro tip in general. Let's move on with the next slide. And then we've got Prodeso, we've got the heating cable, the sensor, we've got the waterproofing. The last thing we need to do is get everything connected to that control. The one
thing about this installation, up to this point, it's all can be DIY.
Okay.
So anybody can do this by just following the instructions, following the video. We have a video that's going to be released very soon on this. Also, we have in the instruction manual. But the one thing you're going to have to do at this point is you're going to have to get a licensed electrician to hook the thermostat up to the main power supply in the house.
Well worth it.
Some states actually require it. We suggest that no matter if your state requires it or not, that you do it, because he or she, going to attach the power from the circuit breaker to the thermostat and then attach the wires from the floor up to the thermostat. The one thing you have to remember is we see these black and red wires is don't forget to install the thermostat wire here. It goes on to the front of the base. So when you take the faceplate off of the thermostat, there's going to be a little terminal there. You plug these little black wires in. Now, one thing we did talk about, some people like to get spare thermostat sensors.
A second backup sensor.
As a backup. That's a great idea until you try to hook them both up at the same time. That's an extraordinarily bad idea. So what you do is you take and you use one and put it in your thermostat, take the other one, coil it up, and stick it in the back of the box that you're mounting the thermostat in.
Brilliant. Love that idea. All right. So we've installed the thermostat and you're basically done here. I mean, I still see you need some grouts, but you pretty much have got your system installed.
Now, the one thing that we didn't talk about, and I want to bring it up here, is because I was a real particular with the installer, was that the installer, I informed him that the best thing to do at this case is to clean the grout lines as he went.
Okay.
So as you set the tile and as it gets pulled down, normally thinset is going to go into the grout line. Well, the thing we have to get away from is having the guy come back a week later after the thinset is dried and start using a sharp metal knife trying to clean the grout lines. That's probably the #1 cause of failures in floors. I've gone out to a floor where the guy he cleaned the grout lines and there were 20 or 30 broken spots in the wire. You just have to make sure that you go out and you clean the grout lines as you go, because you don't have to send somebody out there to clean the grout lines. Sharp metal objects and heating wire are not a good combination. Yeah. So if you look in there, you can actually see those grout lines don't have any grout in them, but they don't have any thinset in them either.
All right, and then I can kind of see the ProBand, right? That's the the waterproof membrane going along the edge of the
Right.
room.
It also goes behind the shower, but he's already installed the wall tile on the shower. So there, it's hidden there. So there is your waterproof spot between the wall and the floor is that ProBand. So that's going to get that water to automatically go down into that drain.
Excellent. All right, so we've got a finished shower, and the next slide, just really, we wanted to talk about, and again, this is a finished image of that exact room that you kind of supervised, so it turned out great. It looks beautiful.
Before we do that, though, I would like to go back to the slide before,
Okay.
because I think we might have trouble with our video, so I want to talk about it. If you look here in this picture, we have a perfect example of an inside corner, which is that corner back in the back there. That's an inside corner. That's where that prefabricated inside corner is going to go.
Okay.
Now, if we come up and we take a look at this wall over here, we're going to see that is a different type of corner. That's an outside corner.
Right
So
there.
that's where you would put the outside corners there.
Yeah.
And that's where they're prefabricated to go in that corner. Then you go back into the back of the shower, and that's where the inside corner is.
Excellent.
So here we can actually see, just by my trained eye, is I've got visible in this picture, I've got one inside corner, and I've got two exterior corners,
Okay.
outside corners. One there, and then one there, and then one at the other corner. Those are both, that requires two separate outside corners.
Okay.
So thank you for going back there. I just want to make sure we saw the difference between those.
All right, so finished, everything's finished, and again, there are some common questions that we always get, and for the most part, this isn't even related to curbless showers. This is related to the floor heating. Is that right?
Yeah, if you came down and listened to us take phone calls every day, you'd hear at least 5 times a day
Right.
asking these same questions.
Yeah.
When does it become okay to turn the system on?
Right.
When is it okay for me to flip the switch?
They want that heat.
They want that heat right away. They want to test it out. Well, the way you should be testing it is with a digital ohm meter, not by turning it on.
Right.
What you have to do is you have to wait until the thinset cures. That automatically leads to the next question they ask us, which we always can't answer, is that when will it cure?
How long?
And we don't know the answer to that, but the bag that came holding your thinset,
Yeah.
on that bag it'll tell you what the cure time is.
And if you lose the bag or it's been thrown away,
Call the company that makes the thinset.
or go back to Home Depot or Lowe's or Menards and
Right. Or
find
right.
that bag.
You'll find that bag and it'll tell you on there how many days that is. It could be anywhere from 7 days to 28 days.
Yeah.
So it's not something that you want to just guess.
Right. What happens if you turn it on too soon?
If you turn it on too soon, you will affect the curing of the thinset itself, which over time may cause it to become unstable and could cause the thinset to degrade and actually fail. So the last thing you want to do is you don't want to interrupt, speed up, or slow down that curing cycle. So you just let it do its natural thing, and then at that point you can turn it on.
Wonderful. Okay, so that's it. It's done, eh?
I think so.
All right. So we wanted to just give you guys a general feel for it, because that's a question we get a lot as well, is how much does something like this cost? So we wanted to show you a specific project, the floor plan for that project, how many square feet we were dealing with here. And so you can kind of see 2 cables, one for the shower, one for the rest of the room, one control for this particular project, but they could consider putting them on separate controls. And then you have the cost of the waterproofing, which is all of the ProBand for the next 3 lines. You have your Prodeso membrane, and then of course you need those circuit checks. Now, there's 2 here. They could probably use 1 potentially. Or...
Well, I just like to keep them both on at the same time, because you don't have to wait. Oh, hold on, quit thin setting. Let me take this one off and move it to the next one.
Yeah.
It's such a small charge that it's just worth it to have both of them on at the same time.
And this is full retail. So just to give you a general idea of how much something like this costs A to Z.
You could use this if you had a curved shower. You could still use all these parts here.
Yeah.
All you would do is you would eliminate the outside corner, inside corner, and the Prodeso roll, the ProBand roll. Everything else would remain the same. It just wouldn't be a waterproof space.
Okay, well, let's talk about that next. Let's talk about the fact that, as was pointed out earlier, we do have already prefabricated floor heating mats and shower bench mats. And so those are great. For the floor, they already have the drain kind of configured that, can be changed within some reason, but you really want to kind of understand where that pre-hole shower drain is done. So if you give us the floor plan, we can kind of make sure all of that matches up.
Right. Now, if you're watching this today, you're probably saying to yourself, why do I need this green mesh here?
Yeah.
Well, what this green mesh is, it's taking the place of the Prodeso. Because the Prodeso holds the wire in place while you put thinset over it, right?
So you
That's part of its job.
No longer need the insulation membrane.
Right. So at this point, you're just going to, we're going to assume that you already have the waterproof membrane down, the brand you want to use, and you just lay this down into it. And the green mesh actually holds the wire in place like the Prodeso does, but it's just sitting on top of the waterproof membrane that you choose.
Okay. And I noticed these are at 15 watts per square foot. They're a little bit higher. Typically, we're at 12 watts per square foot, and I think that's great because you really do want to heat up that area faster.
Yeah, because this is the area that can lead to stacking. You know, it can lead to thicker applications. We always suggest that the heating wire is within 1 inch to 1.5 inches of the top of the tile, because that's where your foot rests. The further away, if my thumb is the wire, the further away that wire is, the cooler it is, and the longer it takes to heat up.
Yeah.
So that's why you always want to try to keep the sandwich thin.
Got it. And then these, again, approved for wet location. You definitely have to have a product that is wet location approved. So that's very important to us.
But what's the big deal about this? 15% off.
Everybody likes a deal. So yeah, for all of you guys joining us, we are offering 15% off our regular MSRP for these mats. Let's go through it very quickly with the next slide and show you. You took a lot of time to kind of study the size of standard size showers, standard size benches, and you came up with the recommendations for width and lengths. And so, and
you can also you can use these in conjunction. You think about when you're standing in the shower, you never really stand up against the edge of the shower.
True.
So if you have, let's say, an area that's much bigger than one of these mats provides, you can still put that mat around the drain hole because that's most of the time where you're standing. If you want to heat the other 2 or 3 feet, if you got a gigantic area, you can use another small cable and route it out there too.
Right.
So these are installed these are the very, very common sizes.
Okay.
A lot of construction are using these sizes that we have here for the shower benches and for the shower mats. So those are very common. If you have an uncommon size that these won't fit into, if you're using a trench drain or something like that, you can still use a Prodeso with a loose cable. So there's 2 ways of working it here. But if you have one of these sizes, boy, it's really simple. You just put the thinset down on the shower pan and push it down in and start tiling. Okay. It's really, really a great thing because they're all pre-made.
Excellent. All right, so that's out there for you guys. Take advantage if you can, if you have an opportunity that's coming up of that promotional discount. And I think we're pretty much at the end. How did you feel about this project when you were doing it? Was this your first curbless shower install?
The first one I installed, yeah. And once you get the thing down, it's really not that difficult at all. You're still using the same amount of pitch to get the water to go into the drain. It's a very common type of installation. The only thing you're doing is you're taking that big curb away.
Right.
So normally if you have a curb there, you have to run the wire up over the curb and then down into the shower to get it around there. I'm sorry, I just hit the table there. But to do that, it's actually much easier to install if you take that curb away because you can just get right up close to where the shower floor is and to where the rest of the room is. So it was a very interesting install, and they love it. I talked to the homeowners now.
And they're happy.
That room was built on an old farmhouse, and it was an addition to an old farmhouse, and all it had underneath was a crawl space. That floor in the wintertime was 30 degrees, even less. Yeah. And now that they've put this in, it's like night and day for them. They love to go into this room now. You used to hate it.
Oh, that's great. That's what we love to hear. Yeah. All right. Any more questions out there? I think Ed asked the last question. While we're waiting for questions, let's talk about what's coming up next. Because we do this gig every month. So we're here second Thursday of every month at 1 p.m. Central Time. That is a new time for us. We used to do this at 2 p.m. We're trying to see if that time works for you guys. So let us know what you think.
On the survey.
On the survey coming up. But we're going to be talking about transferring a cold basement with radiant floor heating. And believe it or not, bathrooms are the #1 application for radiant heating, kitchen's #2, but basement's a close third, a close #2, I should say maybe. But a lot of people want to get that floor heating in their basement Basements tend to be damp, cold, dark. It really does transform it. Not to mention it's an overflow area for guests. So we're really going to dig into how to turn that cold basement into something that's cozy and inviting, warm for you and for any potential guests that might want to hang out for a few days.
For you people that live in the south and for people that live in the west or places in mountainous areas where you don't have a basement, you don't feel the pain we do in the Midwest. But take it from me, I have a basement that's very, very cold. But the basement's very cold except for the upper third of the basement. Because I've got vents up there that blow the heat down about halfway, and that heat goes right back up. So your head is nice and warm, but boy, your feet freeze in the wintertime.
So we'll be talking about that.
And the cool thing about the basement is we have a couple different ways to heat a basement floor. Cool. With laminates, engineered wood if they're allowed in that particular area, carpet. So there's a lot of different ways to do it, and there's more than one way to heat it.
Nice. All right, so transforming a cold basement. Come spend some time with us July 13 at 1 p.m. We'll both be back again. And then we do have a promotion going on. We tend to have a promotion every month. We give a special promotion to you guys for the shower mats, but for the general public, we have our two most popular towel warmers, the Infinity, the Riviera. So for June, we're giving an extra 20% off. So just wanted to let you guys know that. And then the next step is we need to hear back from you guys. So fill out a survey. It's going to ideally pop up automatically once we exit. If you have your pop-up locker on, activated, it won't happen, but it'll be in the follow-up email that we send you guys. So we'll send you an email. It'll have this recording in it. We'll also mention some additional resources that I love and Scott uses, you know, when he's looking at curbless showers. So we'll follow up with an email with all of that great information. All right, and then I think that's it. I mean, if you guys have any questions, just email me directly. The buck really does stop here. If you don't want to talk with me, that's cool. info@WarmlyYours.com. And like us on Facebook because, well, that's really a cool thing to do. And you always like to talk about 24/7.
Yeah, if you are in the middle of doing an installation, it happens to be on a Saturday or a Sunday, just give us a call because we're always available. So if you have a question, call us.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you guys and see you next month. Jazz hands?